Dr. Sandy Chapnick, and welcome to another episode of You and Your Health. Wonderful show tonight, and I'm so fortunate to have two authors with me. I have never interviewed authors, so this is very exciting, and actually I'm very also fortunate that this is a very long-time friend of mine, Patricia Minishak, and a brand new friend of mine, Diane Cannava. And they've written a book that I thought was perfect for our show. And before we get into the meat and potatoes of the book and why you wrote it and everything about the book, I'd like to take some time and share with you some of their accomplishments. Diane Cannava and Pat Minishak both have a Master's of Education. Pat Minishak is an adjunct professor at Cambridge College. Their combined teaching experiences in family, clinical, and public school settings includes regular and special education programs ranging from preschool through postgraduate instruction and administration since the early 1970s. Some of you actually may recognize Mrs. Minishak from the Billerica school system. Other expertise: program and curriculum development and editing, graduate level writing coaches, staff development specialists, grant writing, program administration, administration of multi-level workshops with both school districts and parents. These shared experience and opportunities as educators and child advocates afford them a unique yet authentic inside-out perspective when dealing with parents, as well as the mystique of the special education process. Therefore, the primary point of reference for this book is to provide the reader with their professional view on specific issues as perceived from the other side of the desk. So they wrote a book that's called Empower Your Voice: What You Need to Know to Be Your Child's Best Advocate.
That's it.
Congratulations on writing a book. It's a huge undertaking.
Oh, it's been a long time. 2 years right now, and we're still, we're almost done with it. But, we've had numerous opportunities where we've, interacted with parents, other professionals. We've had a couple of readings done, so that we make sure we've had it critiqued by, many layers of people, whether it's, colleagues of ours, professionals in the field, parents with children that have special needs. And each one of them comes back with a different critique of what they believe needed to be improved at the time, and we've done all that. There's so much information that, Diane, she also worked for the Billerica Public Schools for
I apologize.
years and
That's
years.
okay. I'm sure they already know if they
and we both retired, and she retired a number of years ago now, and I retired last year. And, so we've really spent some more time working through this. And
it's been a real labor of love, I imagine.
Yes, it has. I think it's going to mirror our experience and all the opportunities we've had working with parents and knowing the times that have been very difficult for them. And sometimes as an educator, you can't really be there 24/7 to hold their hand. So we're hoping if they put this book in their hand, this will be having us with them to help them through some of those tough times they do encounter, looking for special stuff for their children.
So was there anything specific that was the impetus for you guys writing this book?
I think it's the number of years that we both spent. And Diane has, a lot more special education experience than I do. I mean, I've always had, experience with them as well. But, just knowing what parents go through, not just at the time when they're faced with the meetings for these children, but all the preparation that's involved. And like Diane was saying, having them 24/7 is very different. And that's one of the reasons why we really wanted them to take the role as their child's advocate. And to be able to teach them what they need to do is what we've really tried to do for the book, is, give them that other side of the desk look, like you had spoken about. And not to call it an expose, because that's not what we're doing here. We're not trying to badmouth anyone. But what we're trying to do is give them that insight from the other side of the desk. And that's the uniqueness about this book is, it's not just giving you the technical aspects of what they need to do, but this is giving them, we were talking about the conversational piece of how this is written, and not a technical book, not like a textbook format.
Yeah. Many times I've sat at a team meeting, a parent comes in, and it's so hard if you're the professional on this side of the desk and they're sitting there, and it seems as if they're all alone. and it's very threatening to them.
Sure.
Not if it's the first time, the second time, the third time.
Threatening, scary.
And
Right.
many times they'll go out maybe in tears
Mhm.
or wondering what was said. My husband or my wife wants to know what I just heard. How do I tell them? And many times I've kind of tried to trail behind them, but then you have other duties. You have to get back to your classroom. So I think this is a book that's going to have it all in there. What do you need to know? What do you need to do? Relax, have a comfort level, have some information about personal skill building maybe, knowing a little bit about what is that process, what is special ed, what is that timeline. I mean, it's not like other books because we've looked at a lot of other books and we did not want it to be the same because then you're just wasting your money. And not that you'd waste your money if you went out and got an advocate because they do train them and they know the law very well. But you know your parent better than anybody else. And you could be the best advocate because you've had them since, well, in utero, you do take care of them. You're their provider, you're their first teacher, you're their protector. You're that constant entity that they have throughout their life. You feel them, you know them. And when you go into a school system or any place where you need service for your child, that personal thing is not there when it's someone who's going to have you be quiet while they deal with things. You can deal with it. You really can. You can do it. You can empower your voice and speak up, and we'll teach you how to do that in a nice way.
And no one's going to advocate for a child more than the parent.
Right.
That's right.
And I think the other thing is for parents to recognize the fact that it's not a one-shot deal. It is a lifetime experience. And if
No matter how old the child is.
Exactly.
Right.
And like Diane had said, it starts in utero. That's the first
Sure.
realization parents have is, knowing that they're going to have to provide for this child. But knowing that it's not a one-shot deal, who knows better to carry that out throughout the rest of their life than their parent? And so that's one of the things that we've tried to do here is, put some basic foundation type information together for personal skills so that they can take that foundation and then with the technical aspect of the book information, be able to, communicate that in the meetings that they have to go to know what those timelines are. Those are all included. To be able to be a proactive parent rather than a reactive parent, to be able to take that initiative to take the material, take the information, and interact within the book. And then also, because we've done worksheets in there, we've compiled worksheets for them to take the knowledge and then be able to work through it so that they have a comfort level, because that comfort level is what's going to help to sustain them when they get those tense situations in a meeting. Be able to fall back on it and feel comfortable. But, the thing of it is, Sandy, that, it's not something that we just want them to pull out during a meeting. But
Right.
to be able to say, this is information that I'm going to be able to utilize throughout my life, throughout other environments, not just in the meetings communicating with teachers, even though that is pretty scary sometimes,
Of course.
but to be able to practice some of the skills that we're trying to communicate in the book in other aspects of their life. And then in turn, this will also help to, to give them some skills to be able to work with their children, because again, it starts in the home. We want to be able to give them these skills, work it out in the home, bring it out into the environment, and then hopefully, with some of the other things that we're talking about in the book, I think that it's very enlightening. Again, from our perspective, giving it to them so that, we've seen what the strengths and the weaknesses are, and we're able to say, okay, this is what we've seen through some little vignettes or scenarios that we're going to put together in the book for them, and this is how to apply it. And rework it if you need to, because we've given them some evaluation sheets that say, okay, this is what I liked about what happened, this is what I didn't like, and these are some of the things that I need to work on in the future.
So the subtitle is an interactive informational self-help guide, and you use that term interactive already.
Yes,
Is that
yes.
what you're talking about, these worksheets and,
Yes,
and the ability
yes.
to double check?
We want them to become learners in the book. We want them to be able to take it and interact within the material so that they're actually able to, practice it in the book, practice it within their own environment, and then be able to take it out. Because again, like anything else, we have to crawl before we can run. And that's what we're going to help them do through the book, is to take some of the personal skills that are going to give them that comfort level when they're taking the technical aspects and being able to communicate it in a way. And then when they feel the frustration level, be able to take it and say, okay, these are some of the things that I learned, these are some of the strategies that I've learned, now I'm going to have to apply it so that I get the most out of the situation, so that we, again, like you were saying, being able to take them through the maze of the special education process in a comfortable way.
Right.
So that they're getting the most out of it, being an empowered parent. And remember, empowerment comes with knowledge.
Yeah, and if they familiarize themselves with the process and they take that knowledge they have, then they'll be knowledgeable decision makers. Because many times they get something sent home and it's like sign on the dotted line. And it's not a black and white situation. They can ask questions, and they should not settle for cookie cutter types of solutions or answers.
Right.
And having
That's
that
important.
ability to
That's
question.
Because I have to imagine that that's an easy thing for administrations to do.
It's-
Just kind
well,
of
you know,
lump and
Because it's
shift kids
threatening.
and-
It's very threatening for parents. And so, you know, like when they start to use acronyms, you know, all the capital letters that they use, parents, instead of saying, whoa, hang on one second, tell me exactly what you mean by that. You know, this is what I have in mind, but, you know, not settling for, like Diane says, you know, the cookie cutter type answers, but questioning them. Being a knowledgeable questioner. That's what we want them to be able to do. So that they have something in mind based on what they know of their child, what they know of the laws that we're providing for them in here, the timelines.
So you're providing all that
Oh,
in the book?
everything's in here. Everything is in it, including some of the things that we put in abbreviated format so that they're able to actually carry it. And we've actually made suggestions in there on how they should best organize their materials. Because again, with all of the information, there's a lot. I don't care how you get the information. There's a lot to digest. And what we've tried to do is give them the information, I don't want to call it in a digestible format, but so that
But you can.
it's friendlier and so that they are able to digest it and then be able to apply it. And that's important because this is a very scary, complex process that they're thrown into.
Yeah, in the ideal situation, having the parent as the advocate, it kind of individualizes that child more. And they call it an individualized educational plan, but we all know they don't write 1,000 of them. There are only so many they do write, and they fit the pieces together to the puzzle, so to speak. But you see your child as a whole, not all those little parts. And you'll have someone that comes in that does the speech part. You'll have someone that tests just the math achievement level or watches behavior. But you know the whole child together. So when they're trying to schedule the day or tell you what they're going to do with your child through the school year, what about the summer? I mean, you're going to be educated to be able to ask and go a little bit beyond what is right in front of your face. And before you do sign on the dotted line, you'll have all your little checks made, and you will not be afraid to even call the school back or any other personnel
That's part of
and
the
say,
proactiveness. That's
you know,
important.
I have a question here, or I didn't remember this. Especially if you're sitting in a meeting and they say something, you'll have a nice way of saying, well, you need to explain that further. Because myself, being a teacher too and being a tester, in the beginning, I would just ramble something off and not say, oh, you know what auditory stimulation means, you know, and give them an idea. This is what your child didn't do or did do in a certain task. It needs to be concrete, and parents should ask, well, what did my child not do? Or what kind of an item on the test was that? And why is it so important? Because they're going to hear so much. And they should be able to say, this is taking a little bit more than I'd like. Can we meet again? You know, and that's not a negative thing. That's more positive. And I bet the school will give you more results when you can take time. Parents don't want to be rushed. School doesn't want to be rushed. And when you say it's easier, everyone's on a timeline. It's just very difficult. And I think having some of this information you bring with you, if you do your homework before you go, then time won't be the problem. It'll be not getting that cookie cutter answer.
So for the parent who really doesn't know what questions to ask, this sounds like the perfect book.
It is. It really.
Is that what really separates this book apart? Because you said you had read a lot of different books over the course of time and that your book was different. Is that what you're referring to?
They're very legalistic, And a lot of them,
lot
to
of them
me, appeal to, well, go get a lawyer, go do due process. That's not necessary. The schools don't want that. Their parents don't really want that. And sometimes people are too quick to say, that's the end of that story. Let's go to court on it. And with this, it's like, sit back, take a deep breath. You know as much as I know. It's not a big deal. What is the special ed law? It changes so much. Even as a teacher, I couldn't keep up with it, you know. But I was a chairperson at one time, and it was so hard. I wanted to jump on the other side of the desk and sit next to the parent and say, okay, now this is the advocates talking. This is the, so that's what I did. I became an advocate. And it was very easy. And I'll tell you how many chair people appreciated that, because I was the teacher too. So I think that's what Patty and I want to do, is get it all in the book, because we can't meet with everybody one-on-one. And we like to have workshops with parents. And administrators, that's very important. They need to know and get on task. And
I think that it's important to remember that also that this is really to allay parents' fears. You know, it's a scary process. It's a scary thing when you think that, you know, your child needs help, and how long is this going to continue, you know, through these critical junctures in the child's development in the school system. And I think that with the guidance that this gives parents, it does it in a non-threatening way. And I think that that's important, because then they feel, you know, a little bit more relaxed and in control of the situation. When they don't have control, that's when I think the trouble starts.
My sense is that in situations like this, where this all becomes necessary, the parents are overwhelmed.
Oh, absolutely.
So,
and it gets worse when you're sitting back and you're waiting and you're not real familiar. And usually what happens is the school systems are responsible for certain things. They're responsible to provide a number of things to the parents. But then the parents are responsible then to read it all and to, like we were talking before, digest it in a way that's understandable to them. And many times it's so technical, and it's hidden within other languages. And what we've tried to do is break down those barriers so that it is easier for parents to follow. You know, that the term user-friendly really does apply.
It does.
You know, and when we're talking about that, we want to make sure that parents can take control.
you know, in situations like this, I need to be spoken to at a second grade level. Do you do that here in the book?
No, not really.
No, we you know, you don't want to insult anyone.
No.
You know,
Okay.
we want to make sure that it is in a language, and obviously the language is, like Diane was saying, when you're sitting in a meeting and they give you all of this technical jargon, is to take the technical jargon and say, this is what it really means.
Perfect.
Because we say it's not a textbook, but in a way, it can become your sort of textbook. It's a conversation. Every time, that's why it's taking so long to almost get this through, because we stop and we read it and we go, no, we want to be speaking to parents in a friendly tone so that they can relax and sit back and not feel threatened and allay their fears that, excuse me, that I understand what this person said here and I can do that worksheet. And that wasn't so hard. And, oh yeah, I know, I have that skill. I just need to do a little bit here to make it a little bit better and apply it to a school situation rather than my home. So they're going to discover a lot about themselves, and they're going to be more proactive, like Patty said, than reactive, because they're going to feel like they have more inside knowledge.
And we want to be able to give them the idea that they can build that ongoing, meaningful relationship with the school.
Which is very positive.
That's so important.
And important.
It's so important because they want to get the most out of the school systems for their child and for themselves. Because what you know the child needs, they also need as well. You know, so that it does give them that peace of mind that they so desperately need. Maybe not just through the school year, but like Diane was saying, maybe there's something else that they need throughout the school year, extended school year. But it's just technical, some of the words that are needed that parents don't know in order for them to get what they need. And we've done that.
There are also pointers. Once you have your child's service or the plan is in action, so to speak, how do you monitor, you know, what's going on? How do you evaluate what's happening to your child at that time? You know, you just don't sign the line and say, I accept now. What happens after that? Do you wait for a whole year to go by when you all sit down together? It's an ongoing process, like Patty said. The school and the home together bring up the child. And you know how many hours are spent in one place and then the other. And when the child has a suspect or a recognized disability, it's even more so, those milestones. Each time they come, they just bring more of a higher level of demand and then overwhelmingness. So to have that relationship, when you say, I can call the principal up and ask him this question, or I can write a little note to this teacher and not feel like she's going to look at every word I wrote. And that's what teachers want. That's what you want. You want a parent that feels relaxed enough to call you up and ask you a question, or a principal.
And you work together.
And you work together.
Not one's working over here in isolation, another one's working over here in isolation, and they all think that everybody's working behind their backs. That's why that ongoing meaningful relationship is so necessary to establish, because we're working for the child.
Right.
Not for any one individual thing, but working for that child.
You use the term disability. Now, do you get disability or called challenge specific in the book? Are there different avenues and different techniques and different questions to ask for different situations, for different challenges?
We've actually charted out in the book how the eligibility process is done, and how it actually equates whether the child does qualify for a disability and therefore services.
Okay.
And trying to explain the differences between the eligibility versus what the child may need if it's not special education itself. And so I think that's another thing that parents have a hard time being able to understand the differences, is knowing, does my child really do have a disability? And there are qualifying factors that actually, they can say, okay, well, if they meet this criteria, then yeah, they do. But if not, and we know there's something else wrong, then what can a parent do?
Right.
Okay.
Yeah, special ed is not always the answer.
Exactly.
There are screenings. All towns do them. There are state laws. There are federal guidelines. That's all in the book. Beyond the screening, what kind of tests does your child need? If your child goes off to a hospital, it even talks about the money, the financial end of it. Who's responsible for what and when. There's so much a child can get prior to starting that special ed, button, pushing that button. If it's clear cut. But the thing is, the law is the least restricted program and a free and appropriate public education, which means all schools must give some sort of service and program, but in the least restricted. So you just don't send them off to a self-contained classroom, or you don't take them out of their classroom more often than they should be. Sometimes it just starts with the teacher doing a couple of accommodations, and they watch that and see if that works. And if that works, then that's the answer. It has to be reviewed, obviously, but if it doesn't work, go to the next level. But that's all in there, so parents don't have to go through that whole process of, what's wrong with my child? No, it's not what's wrong, it's what's going to be best for your child. You're the advocate yourself, and you can ask for what, because you see things at home we don't see. It may be just an attention thing where the child needs to be away from noise, that's all.
Now, obviously, a lot of the book is in the school setting. Do you talk about things that parents can and should do in preparation for the school?
In preparation for the meeting.
Yes.
For the meetings, or for the telephone call that they need to make.
Okay.
That's part of teaching them the skills that they need to empower themselves and to level the playing field. And I think that that's really a key factor, is leveling that playing field so that, they can, and I don't want to call it compete, because it's not a competition, but they may feel it is, and we don't want that. We want them to know what they need to do the best, to be the best advocate for their child. And I think that's what needs to be done, is to teach them the basic information that they can apply anywhere, but then most of all, for their child within that setting.
So this time has gone by pretty quickly, hasn't it?
Yes,
and I get the feeling that we're just scratching the surface. Is there? Can I assume that there's more that you really want to discuss about this book?
There
Well,
are
we
deeper
could take
aspects.
it
Yes.
so many different
So
ways. There's
with
so much. This is a huge topic.
With your permission, I would like to have you guys back again. So
That'd
that
be
we can,
wonderful.
so that we can do more of this, a little bit more in depth, because I have a feeling that they need to know a little bit more about what's going on, why you did this, and how it can really help their children be the best that they can be. And I think we need another half hour. Can we do
Okay.
it?
That'd be wonderful.
All right.
Yep.
So I tell you what, before I close up shop, each of you guys get a minute. And I'm going to time you. I'm going to be a moderator. Share something with them that you want them to know before they see you in a couple of months. And then we're going to sign off.
Okay.
So, go ahead.
I think it's really important that parents have a basic foundation, and they all have skills. All parents have skills. I think we all, as parents, and I'm a parent myself, I think we all want the best for our children. I mean, it's just a natural thing. And I think as a natural aspect of being a good parent, you just naturally advocate for your child. But I think the problem comes with the different environments, and that each environment itself requires certain set skills. And I think that what we've tried to do in the book, because we do feel so passionately about the children that we've had, you know, we've all the years that we've been teaching together, we call them our children. Because we always have advocated within our classrooms for the best for the child. We want to help parents to be able to, in a very uncomfortable environment, the special ed maze, be able to teach them what they need to know and be able to do and be comfortable with it to get the most for their child, because they deserve it.
Perfect.
They deserve it.
Diane, what you got?
Well, I'd like to shoot that special ed monster right in the belly. You know, peel the layers off one by one, because I did it forever, and I love special ed, and I love my special ed kids, and I love my special ed parents, but the paperwork will choke you to death. And I think the teachers are just in a bind as the parents are. And I think between now and the next time you meet with us, I would just like to say that the mystique, we use that word a lot about the special ed process, because it's so full of legalities and paperwork and timelines, and it's like you don't even want to approach it when you think about it. But you know, there's a recipe, and when you do a recipe, you take one ingredient at a time, and if you put them all in together and they blend well, then you've got this nice, wonderful thing that arrives, you know, and it smells good and tastes good and you feel good about it. So I'm hoping that's what we're going to show you the next time we meet, is kind of take that special ed monster and take it apart piece by piece. It's not a bad thing, you know. It growls a little bit, you know.
Perfect. Diane, thank you. We're about to ready to wrap it up. I know this has left me wanting more. I have to believe that this is going to leave you wanting more. So we're going to get them back in a couple of months. I'm Dr. Sandy Chapnick. I wish you all very well, and we'll see you next month.